All right, welcome to our live stream for adult guitar players. Today's topic is that we are doing music theory for the Campfire. I'm going to unmute my guests here, and I want to thank Doug and Justin and for being here. Thank you. I know Braden got himself a new Kubota skid steer today, and I'm surprised he made it, because if I was him, I'd be out there moving things around. In fact, I might actually later.
Little sweaty and dirty.
It's all good. And a little plug for your business, Braden. Braden owns Denny's Contracting here in Mornville, and good guy, does really good work. And thank you for joining us. And Justin, you are our kind of king of theory and knowing a bunch of things. So you're the guy that I'm going to go to last when we ask for the answers on questions, because you're usually right. And Braden just says, I'm taking Justin's side.
All right.
And Doug, you're a good all-rounder. You have, and you're really quick to study on this stuff, and so that's one of the reasons that I'd asked you to come in on this. So I appreciate, and you're also good with my personality, which is we just kind of jump in and figure it out later. So I appreciate that, Doug.
No problem.
All right. So for music theory for the Campfire, I texted you guys before and said we're going to be, oh, and there goes my intro. Look at me go. So like I said, Doug, things just happen around here. So I'd said, about the major scale for you guys to study up on that. And the reason why is that for music theory, and I'm super popular amongst university professors when I say this, but they call it music theory, not music fact. So I like to preface any theory conversation with that knowledge. Music theory is really kind of a language that musicians communicate in. It's so that we can talk to each other. It doesn't make you a better musician to know it or not know it. It sometimes is helpful, and sometimes it gets in the way. So for the average, guy around the campfire, there's not a lot of theory that's needed, but if you want to up your game and become the rock star around the campfire, knowing some of this basic stuff is really good. So do all three of you, I know Justin, you said you knew your major scale. Doug, were you able to find that? I can pull that up, and actually I'm going to pull that up on my page anyways, but I'd love to see you play it. Were you able to find it, Doug?
Yeah, I found an old cheat sheet from one of our early lessons back some years ago, and I had a chance to play around with it in the last hour or so.
And you did it, looks like you did it in C?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to pull that up on our screen here. Just give me one sec, gentlemen. Now, for the purpose of understanding theory, one octave is enough. So that's the first 8 notes of it. And Doug, what you played there, which is great, takes you into 2 octaves. And so this is what we're talking about here. Let me make that a little bit bigger. So in C, it is the one that's marked number 3. So normally when I'm teaching soloing to people, this is kind of the order that I tell people to learn things in. But this is, you guys can see that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm saying 1 octave. That is from there to there. Because after this 10, what happens is this is just a repeat of the same thing 1 octave higher. Yeah, I see the guys playing through it. Justin, is this news? Is there any news to you here, or is this all like old information?
Yeah, this is what I get tested on in band. I got this.
Nice. Awesome. Okay. Braden, are you good on this?
Well, it's blurry. I'm trying to figure it out. So it's 8, 10, 7, 8, 10, 7, 9, 10, 7, 9, 10, 8, 10.
So I'm going to show this to you in close cam, and it's only the 6th string, 5th, and 4th string that we're worried about. So,
Okay.
Whoops, wrong computer. Okay, so we'll go with C here. So my middle finger is on the 8th fret.
Yep.
And then pinky's going to 10. Yeah, and then 7, 8, 10 on the string up, and then 7, 9, 10. And then Braden, you were talking about earlier needing to strengthen up your pinky. Use your pinky on that. That's going to help.
So when you were having lessons, so now I know that's the major scale that I have been practicing. Did not realize that, but that's not the scale I have been practicing right now to get that pinky in there. But
take a second on that. I just noticed my audio kicked out, so it's going to take me a second. We're live on a stream, and I'm going to get back to some decent audio. Just give me 1 second. But you guys that scale a couple of times.
Brayden, I don't know if you can hear me, but
yep.
My pinky on my left hand, I smashed it pretty bad in my younger years playing hockey. And it haunts me when I try to do these scales because it's bent, it's curved around. So in the natural position for me to hit, say, 10, my finger actually wants to land on 9 because it's that crooked.
Oh, really?
In the last couple of years, I've been trying to work it in a lot more, and it's getting there. It's getting stronger and it's getting better. But
well, that's my thing. I've just taken the lazy route and try not to incorporate it, but it's like, to get the dexterity to match up with the picking hand, it's just this lockdown. That's all I've been doing is just trying to play songs. I just 15 minutes of scales before I do anything really.
Yeah, scales are the best way to develop your fingers.
I know, it's just, it gets aggravating because I've jumped so far ahead with playing that because I just ignored learning all this crap, right? I just by ears.
Yeah.
So
well, that's the problem when you're self-taught. You learn all the bad habits come in that box. As soon as you open that self-taught box, all the bad habits pop out at you.
Well, and that's it. And the thing is, like, I've gotten back into playing with guys right now, which they're not the most proficient ones, but the one guy, he knows where to be on the thing, what a key, where it is on the neck. And then we try to learn these songs, and it's just I can't even play the lead because my fingers just don't work that way. Not yet, anyways.
So I think I'm back with you guys. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Good. And it was a great conversation you guys were having, and I'm sure your band members are going to love to hear that, Braden. No, I'm kidding.
Well, they're so annoyed right now because every time it's like, oh, you guys practicing songs, and I'm just like, yeah, I think how about we try a little bit better at the basics. We got time right now, so.
So we are back, and so for the major scale, here's why it's important. So if you know the major scale, understanding chords is really comes from the major scale. The communication that we have about chords when we talk about minor, it relates to the major scale. So where you flat the third note of the major scale to make a minor chord, for example. Not that I expect you guys to understand that yet, but the communication about chords is kind of like, I always say this is like where you go into a computer and you're nesting files within files. Your major scale is like the first file, and then the next file is understanding chords, and then one that branches off from the major scale as well is chord structures and how they work. And all of it flows back to, if you have a good solid understanding of the major scale, those other things will make a whole lot more sense. And so one of the things that's super helpful with this too is knowing your letter names on the 5th and 6th string really well, but also on the rest of your strings reasonably well up to about your 5th fret, which I think Braden's good at that. I think Doug is good at that. I'm pretty sure Justin's going to be good at that too.
No, I'm not good at it.
You're not good at it? Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So it's a little bit easier because I can show you how things work and then get you to test it out, for example. So with understanding chords, for when it comes to the major scale, I'm going to show you guys the very, very basics. And there's basically, you know, kind of there's three primary colors in the world, and what are they? Red, blue, and yellow, I think. Or maybe I've got that wrong. But there's basically kind of like the primary colors. There's four primary chords, which are major, minor, augmented, and diminished. And we talk about those chords by saying, here's how they're similar to the major scale, and here's how they're different. And then, so that's kind of the first thing that I wanted to start with you guys. Does that kind of make some sense? And that'd be a bit of an exciting thing to do?
I
Yeah,
hope
for sure.
so. Yep.
Right on.
Sure.
So the major chord, the most simple chord, is if you know your major scale, it is the first, third, and fifth note of the scale make the major chord. I got to get rid of this fill box. So, and that's for any chord. So if you play on, I'm going to go to my close cam here again. So if you play the major scale, our first note, third note, and fifth note, which is C, E, and G, those are the notes that make the C major chord. So then I tell that to people, and then they play me a C chord, and they say, well, okay, how does that make sense? If you look at that C chord and you look at what every single note is, you'll find I said that they are C, E, and G. The low note right here, this is a C. Braden, do you know that C?
Yeah.
Your guitar is tuned to half step down, but that's fine. And
They're all are. I wasn't prepared. I'm sorry. It was last minute.
oh, good. You have a new Kubota. That's way more important. So this next note, Braden, what's this one that I'm playing? Second fret on my fourth string. Do you know what that one?
G. Oh,
Yeah, so your second fret on the fourth string.
E.
Sorry, did you?
G. Is that G?
It's an E.
That's E.
The second fret on your fourth string is an E.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, that's all good. No worries. Doug, so now actually our first two, I said the C chord is C, E, and G. And so far we've played a C and an E. And what's our third string open, Doug?
G.
Yep. So there's a C, E, and a G. Now, Justin, first fret on our second string. What's that note?
That's C.
Yep. And then Braden, first string open.
That's E.
There you go. So there was only C's, E's, and G's. Okay. Now it was over 2 octaves, but it only had those 3 notes. If it has any other note, it's not necessarily just a C chord. So if you had an A in there, for example, you're not just playing a C chord anymore. So a C major chord will have those 3 notes in it, and only those 3 notes, and C will be the bottom note. It'll be the lowest note. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, for sure.
Is that new to you, Justin?
I had to work through one of the theory books for school, so it's similar, but it's been a long time, so I can always refresh on this kind of stuff.
Yep, no, that's fair. And Braden gave out the big smile, like this is new for him.
It's the names are all new to me, so yeah.
Okay, that's okay. Doug, is this one making sense to you?
Yeah, I'm actually just taking some notes because, yeah, I'll play around. I'd like to move on and try some of the other scales and then also some of the other chords just to see the math.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm going to give you guys an overview today. And for people that are watching, this is not the super, fun. We're learning a great song. This is the, fundamental understanding. And I think it's really important because then you can talk to your other musicians as you're jamming around the campfire. Now, when you go to so Doug, you were saying, which is great, you're going to try some other scales. Like, let's say you went to G major, for example. The same rule is going to apply. So the hand position in 1 octave is exactly the same. Okay. The same rule is going to apply. The letter names are going to be different, which is Braden's going to hate. But the first, third, and fifth note of the G major scale is going to make the G chord. So, for example, so Braden, 6th string, 3rd fret. What is that? What is that note?
E. G
Nope.
sharp. C. 3rd fret.
3rd fret, 6th string.
E. C.
It's G.
Oh, I had said G.
Oh, did you?
First time I second guessed myself.
You outsmarted yourself. That's all
I'm
good.
trying to go back to what Luke taught me because we were just learning the E, and then anyway.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And then, so now from the G major scale, for example, we're going to do the same thing. That would be G, B, and D would be the only notes in a G major chord. So let's test the theory out so that we can see how this works. So we've determined that the lowest note of a G chord is, in fact, a G. Doug, can you give me the letter name for the 5th string, 2nd fret?
Sure. B.
There you go. So that is our 3rd note of the scale because we're doing G, B, and D. So there you go. And then Justin, I'm giving you the softball here. Your 4th string open.
It's a tough one. D.
Braden, what's your 3rd string open? Because that one is open in this chord as well.
3rd string.
3rd string open.
D.
Not quite. Third. So depending on how you count your strings, because remember our thinnest string is the first one.
Oh, G.
There you go. You got her. So far we have G, B, D, and then now we have another G again. And then for a G chord, you can either use your 2nd string open, which is a B, or your ring finger on the 3rd fret, which is a D. So that's the 3rd note of the scale and the 5th note of the scale, and then a G on our 1st string. So again, this G chord only has the 1st, 3rd, and 5th note of the G major scale in it. That's what makes it a major chord, plus G is the lowest note. There's no exceptions to play the major chord. That's how it is. There's some latitude on voicings, which I'm not going to get into, on some other instruments that have less strings. But that is the rule for major chords. So Braden, that theory of that is making sense, but you're going to get better at learning your letter names.
Yes. So either I need to Google it, or if you have just literally.
Actually, this page that I have here that I'm going to include, I'll put a link to this in the comment section of this, has not a very neat, but a version of this that only uses sharp names. So your 5th string open is A, 1st fret is A sharp, B is your 2nd fret, C is the 3rd, C sharp is the 4th, and so on. And this is the repetitive. So Braden, you know your open strings.
Yep.
So your 6th string open is E, and so that means your 1st fret would then become F, 2nd fret would be F sharp, G would be your 3rd fret, and so on. Okay, and that is the musical alphabet.
Okay.
So I've impressed upon you guys that the major scale it's the holy grail of being able to communicate with other musicians. I want to do so, and that's the overview of major chords. Now, minor chords, what we say.
Oh, quick question before you move on.
Rock it out, please.
Small transition, but ukulele.
Yes.
The same theory applies, because as I was learning to play it, I just kind of memorized, but I don't play it often enough. I'll grab it. All of a sudden, Caitlin hands it to me, and she grabs my guitar. First thing, I'm really thinking about what the heck the chords are. Same theory apply?
It does, except for with ukulele, because it has 4 strings. Oftentimes, like if you play a chord, the lowest note of that chord will not actually be the root note.
Right.
So now this is one of the exceptions, but here's how it works. From a theoretical, and this is where I say it's music theory, not music fact, all of us would call it, a G chord if you're playing a G on uke, even though your low note isn't G, if memory serves me correct. Maybe it doesn't. But what happens is you're playing it along with a guitar player or a bass player, and the bass guitar plays the lowest note in the band. And when you look at chords, when a band is playing, you actually look at all of the notes that everybody's playing to determine the chord that's happening. So a bass guitar playing a low G, and then a ukulele playing only, like let's say they had a low B and a D and then a G. Technically, it wouldn't be just a G major with a low B, but if it's playing along from a theoretical perspective, you would call that a G.
Gotcha.
Does that make some sense there?
Yeah, I could. Yeah, that's good. I get it now.
This is the layman's theory. I'm going to call it functional working theory that the everyman needs to know for music, not just guitar. So we talked about our major chord is 1, 3, and 5 of the major scale. Justin, I'm going to throw you under the bus here. Can you tell me which letters of the scale, or how the scale works when it comes to play a minor chord? Do you know that?
Minor flattened the third, I believe.
Sweet. Yep. We call it 1 flat 3 5.
Okay, wonderful.
To play the chord. Now, to play the other major scales, there's a little bit more to it, but from the chord perspective, that means if I go back to my sheet here, we have our C major scale. Here's our third note of the scale. You would play, from a technical perspective, this is a C chord. You would play an 8, and instead of playing the 7, you would play a 6, and then our fifth note stays the same. So it's C, E flat, and G is what makes our C minor chord. Now, just as a little demonstration, if I find this G, on my next string up, it's my 5th fret. So if I play C, E flat, G, that is a C minor chord. Just those three
Okay.
notes. Does that make some sense?
Yeah.
So now the difference between major and minor is only one note. So here's major, and there's minor. And people see this easily on guitar with chords like E major to E minor. One note difference. Okay. The things like A major, we play our A like this, we move this note down here, and now it becomes A minor. So that's it. That's the difference on between major and minor. It's that one note. But then the complicated part about it on guitar is, that's not so easy for like an open C chord, for example. You have to, this is an E, well, we have to flat that, and then we have to play the next string open. And, if you want to keep this C here, that becomes a pretty uncomfortable hand position. And you can't play your first string open because that's now your E. You can't make it an E flat. But that's a valid way to play a C minor chord, this is a C chord without the first string, and I move this down 1 fret. There's another way to do it. And there's a C minor. But from a musical perspective, we typically are using this minor barred chord instead of the major barred chord. And you'll notice that the major barred chord, the only difference is this one note gets moved. Sure, my hands move dramatically different, but there's only one note that's different to go from C major to C minor. Is that making some sense to you, Braden?
Yeah.
I know you're going to struggle without the kind of some of the other background stuff, and I appreciate you for hanging in with us. And these are discussions that are going to happen over time that you're going to start to get clearer on. And Justin and Doug have put some serious time into this all along, and so that makes you at a bit of a disadvantage. But you're a smart guy. You're going to rock it out.
I don't know. We'll see.
Doug,
It's just nice even knowing.
Yeah.
The name to that chord was. I could play it, just never knew it.
Yeah. And, the fact that you can play it and know when to play it around the campfire is even better. So then, Doug, does this make sense to you as a concept for minor? Oh, sorry. And,
How about now, Paul?
Okay, we can hear. Oh,
Yeah.
there we go.
I can hear Paul.
So what's happening?
No, I can't.
So I just figured this out on my computer. I'm going to be a little, my lips aren't going to sync up exactly, but I have notifications set on my computer, and every time somebody gives me a call, it kicks out my audio. So that's super fun. Love learning that stuff on a live stream. Okay. So, Doug, was this making sense to you?
Sure, I would have never understood the theory of where the minor came from, right? I had a strong feeling it was just a drop of one note to flat, just from the structure of an A to an A minor or an E to an E minor, but I would have never understood the legalities of why it is that way.
Right. Yeah, okay. And Justin, you were able to guess that right away. Does this kind of cement that for you a little bit?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Nice. So then I said there was, our basic chord family is major and minor. Now there are, and these are not used nearly as much, augmented and diminished. So, Justin, you get serious bonus points if you can guess either one of those and know what they are. Do you have augmented or diminished for me?
Augmented, is it a sharp, I want to say 7th?
Okay, there's your guess. Anybody else want to hazard a guess at that? I see Braden shaking no, Doug's shaking his head no. Okay, and so your guess is sharp 7, Justin. And what about guess on that?
I know augmented is you make something sharp diminish, you make something flat, but I can't remember what part of the scale it is.
Okay, we're giving Justin.
Is that the Jimi Hendrix chord? That's a diminished chord?
It is not.
I tried.
That was a good try though. That was a good try. I love it. I love the spirit. So augmented is sharp 5. So Justin was on the right track on that. So if we take a look at our major chord or our major scale again, I'm going to go back to close cam. So we have our 1, 3, 5. It's 1, 3, sharp 5. So then we played our major chord like this before. This is our C major in this goofy position. It would technically be. Does that make some sense?
All right. Yeah.
So that's how, and you're going to see this chord like 2 times on week, maybe, like not a lot. The diminished one a little bit more. So diminished, and you like augmented and diminished. If you forget this as soon as I say it, I'm 100% fine with that. Major and minor are the basic core of everything you do. So diminished, you flat the 3rd and you flat the 5th. So we end up with, so here's our major, flat the 3rd. I'm going to go down here, and then we flat the 5th. There's our, yeah. And then in general, the rockstar campfire guy is going to see chords like C6, C7, C add 9, C whatever. The thing that you really need to pay attention to, like C6 is a flavor of C. It's a flavor, it's like a different shade of red, right? You can ignore, if you're wanting to get by on a gig, you can ignore everything after the letter name, major, minor, diminished, and augmented, which would be the second thing that would be listed by the chord, and everything else after that is ignorable. And you can be in your basic chord, your basic 4 chords. So all the numbers that they add after, you can, you don't have to ignore them, but to start off with, you can ignore all the stuff that comes next. Those are numbers that are super interesting. You'll see them in a lot of jazz, and I always joke that they're there to make professor musicians feel smart. They're really cool when you get the hang of them. So that's the crash course in the basic chords that we need to know. Now, Doug, I see you making some notes there. Is that clear on your notes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I'll stroll across an augmented chord, but I'll be ready if I do.
Yeah. And that's fair. That's fair. Major and minor, though, those I want cemented in your mind for life.
Yes.
Yeah. So now Okay, so that's one category, and I'm just going to tackle the beginning part of a different category. So we opened up major scale, and then now we've opened up the chords within the major scale, or how you talk about them in regards to the major scale. So major is 1, 3, and 5, and minor is 1 flat, 3, and 5. So that's kind of file number 1 that comes out from our main file. File number 2, not to be confused with what we just talked about. They relate, but not right away. Okay, this is a separate thing that understanding your major scale is going to help you with. I'm going to pull out a different sheet, and it is in our exercises keys. There we go. Okay, this is a nice messy sheet that I will also include in the comments that I won't be able to put in until I get home later this evening. But this sheet is a diagram of how our major scale and chord progressions work together. Can everybody see that okay? And I apologize that this like I was a doctor. Okay, so here's what we're looking at. Sorry, just getting all this in order here. Okay, within each note of the major scale, there is a corresponding chord. Okay, so in the key of C, for example, and this is how to read this, is, I'm going to get my pen out here, this is the key of C. Right here, goes side to side, not up and down, even though these are exactly the same letter names. So in the key of C, the common chords are C major. The next one is D minor, and these are the letter names of your C major scale when you play it. C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And Braden, if you were to play the C major scale and then count up all of those notes, you would find, indeed, that is the letter names that you're playing if you play that scale. Does that make some sense?
Okay, yeah, I think so.
So now, we have C major is the first chord, D minor is the second one, E minor is the third chord in the scale, and F major is the fourth chord, G major, A minor, and B diminished. All of those chords, the cool thing about these chords is when you play each one of those chords, you are only using notes off of the C major scale. Okay, so I'm gonna say this, and this is maybe going just a little deep, so I'm gonna say it and then back away slowly. But when you play a C chord, the notes are C, E, and G. First, third, and fifth note of the scale. You guys see that? Okay. The D minor, the notes for D minor are D, F, and A. Okay. And likewise, for E minor, the notes of an E minor chord are E,
G, and B.
Okay, so they all are within this scale. Now an F major there's the 1, 3, and then the 5 is over here. So it is F, A, and C. So you see the pattern that I'm doing here, right? I'm just moving everything over to the right. And the notes in the G chord are G, B, and D, just like we had talked about a little bit earlier. And A minor is A, C, and E, and B diminished, if you looked at it, would be B, D, and F. So what this does, this is kind of why, in general, because there are other chords that people use, but these are the really common chords, all of the notes for most pop songs, let's say, for example, most of the notes that are being played are all within the C major scale, even when they're changing chords. So they're going from a C chord to an F chord. All of the notes that are being played are still within this master C scale. Does that make some sense?
Yeah. So it's like the circle of fifths almost, but we're talking guitar chords.
Circle of fifths is actually a way that they use to memorize how many sharps or flats there are in a particular scale. I can see why you'd be pulling that parallel. It's kind of a different thing.
Okay.
Yeah, but I applaud your effort on pulling those together because they're a little different concepts. But what it is this is it's kind of when people learn this at first they kind of go, oh, when I'm playing in the key of C, generally all of my notes are on the C major scale, so that's why when we play a guitar solo, for example, we use all of the notes off of the C major scale, even when everybody else is changing chords underneath, because everything is still hinging and relying upon that C major scale.
Yeah.
Okay, now Doug, did I lose you there? I see you intently looking, or your screen is frozen. I'm not sure.
The potential glaze over.
Yeah.
That was a little above my head.
That's good. Okay, that's fine. What I want you to gather from this, Doug, and maybe you didn't, and that's fine. And this is not a one-time shot, right? This is not something we can do at one time and get it. But the thing I really wanted you to understand is that when we're changing chords and we're in the key of C for most of our pop songs, all of the notes that we play, regardless of the chord we're playing, all fall within the C major scale.
Okay.
So when you're playing, and Doug, you know, in the key of C, the other two chords that would be really common would be the major ones, which are C, F, and G.
Yeah.
All of the notes in those chords are on the C major scale.
Okay.
That's the main point that I want you to grasp from this.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, is there any questions, Doug, that you can ask that might illuminate this a little bit better for you?
Well, sure. There's the obvious one comes. So if I'm playing in C, and if all the notes are in that scale, then why can't I just strum the guitar open?
That's a great question. So leave it to Doug. So all of these notes are in the C major scale. Harmonically, how those notes all ring together at the same time, though, matters. Okay? So when you're playing an E and an F at the same time, it's not super pleasing.
Right.
But when
So it's jazz.
you go. And if you make a mistake, then we definitely call it jazz. But if you were to play and find a way, Doug, I would challenge you to play along with a song that's in the key of C and find a place where you can use every note individually, and yes, they will work.
Got it. Understand.
Yeah. So all of the notes, if I really want to take this to the next level, where I move my camera angles, here's our piano. Our C major scale is just the white keys. It's the only scale that's like that, but that's not a super awesome chord.
Right.
Right?
But theoretically, if we were just playing along in C, some good old fashioned random chords, you could probably in the background play the C major scale and you wouldn't sound out of place.
That's exactly what I'm saying. 100%.
Okay.
Yeah. And
I
I know Braden is I think you're kind of you're picking up bits and pieces of this, and this will get clearer as we go. The big thing on this is that when we were talking about solos, we talked about, and I'm going to put my screen back up here, we talked about the pentatonic scale. Okay. And Braden is putting his hand up there. Yes, Braden.
Right. So I know I'm trying to catch up on what you just said. So when you started this, you said if we're playing in C, you're going to go based off the C major scale. You're doing the first, third, and fifth. So you went C, E, G, right?
Are the notes of the C chord? Yes.
But does that still count if you're using the C major scale? Because you can still use them, I guess you were saying, as the root. If you're starting on the first C major, so it's the first, the third, right?
So can you ask the question again? I think I almost understood.
Yeah, I'm not wording it right. So you're saying we're playing in C, and we go to use the C major scale.
Yes.
But based off your diagram, you showed the first, third, and the fifth note.
Yeah. Oh, we lost your video there. Did we lose Braden altogether? That's okay. That's kind of been the what's going on today. We'll get back to Braden's question when he joins us again. Justin, is there any questions that you have about this?
No, I think I'm good. I've never sort of seen this explained that way. Like when we do theory and band, obviously it's not comprised of all guitar players. You can't really play a chord on a flute. So I've never gone like this far into like guitar theory specifically, but it all makes sense. This is really interesting.
And here's the funny thing, because I teach multiple instruments, I teach theory this way for every single one.
Yeah, we don't dive necessarily like this deep into it.
Yeah, no, that's all good. And typically, like a lot of Royal Conservatory and band music will never get into chord construction. It's like it's not even a topic. Like,
yeah,
I'm not sure why, but because I think it's kind of important, but it's just not a topic. It's not that it doesn't exist because they're still following the same, rules, but
oh yeah.
And so from this perspective, and Doug, I know we went a little bit too deep for you to gather everything that we were talking about, but I wanted, there's one more point that I want to make, and this is going to be continued use over time. I had said before that the major and the relative minor, which we started out 2 weeks ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
The relative minor scale, in its simplest way of understanding it, so the C major scale is C, D, E, F, G, A, B. The A natural minor scale is exactly the same scale, but it starts on A, and it goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So they are exactly the same scale. I see Justin lighten up here.
Okay, wait, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, that you blew my mind a little bit. Hold on.
That's good. That's good. Take it in. I love it.
Okay, we're good.
Doug, does that make sense to you as a concept?
So just to put it in my own language or my own lingo.
Yeah.
So if I was to walk up the C scale until the point I get to my A, and I just continue to play the C scale from that point, is that the same scale, or do I actually need to, instead of starting at C on the neck of my guitar, find A and start there?
Technically, from a technical perspective, to play the A natural minor scale, you need to start and end on A.
Okay.
But from a layman perspective, what you described of playing your C major scale up to A and then kind of stopping and saying, okay, here's my starting note, and then continuing on is the A natural minor scale. 100%, you get it.
So let's assume I drop back down the neck and I start and I play from A.
Your fifth fret. Yeah.
I'm taking lessons from another guy, and I do this tomorrow with him, and he says, play me an A scale. Is that the same scale? One is called A minor and the other is called A, or is it actually a different scale then?
That's great. That's part of our communication language. The A scale, if somebody says play the scale of A, it's assumed that it's minor. Or sorry, it's assumed that it's major.
Okay.
So, just a letter name on a chord, C is major. But C with an M is C minor. So if somebody says play an A scale, that's different than an A minor scale.
Okay. So it'll be actually different, like the A scale, if you wrote it out the same way we have the scale on the page here. If I wrote out the A scale, it'll be different fingering than the A minor scale.
It is. Actually, I'm going to show you that here because we have the C major scale here. I have the A major scale is down here. And so the A major scale has C sharp, F sharp, and G sharp, but the A minor scale, all the notes are natural. There is no C sharp, there is no G sharp or F sharp.
Okay, so that's all right. That's actually super. That just cleared up some things for me. So that's an A minor scale when I play it like that.
Actually, I can't see you. Can I hear you? Can I
I'm doing the same fingering as the C major scale, but I slid down to A.
That's the A major scale.
This is A major.
A major. So, because A minor, remember A minor, you have to change a bunch of things to make it minor. So we use our reference. You have to flat the third, sixth, and seventh note to make it the A minor scale.
So when I asked you if I walked up on my C scale to A and just continued to play, that would be my A minor scale, but it wouldn't be.
Oh, okay. Well, what I was assuming in that conversation is that if you kept playing the C major scale but started on A,
Oh,
that's so my bad. I assumed that's so. Here's what I thought you were
so
saying.
the same thing, like the same. I get you.
So if you're playing your C major scale, let's see if we can get this here. Here's C major scale, and there's our A note.
Exactly.
Now the C major scale continuing on is like this.
Right.
So if I start here and I play, and there's A, that is the A minor scale.
Gotcha.
So so when I say relative majors and minors, those two scales, the major and the minor, share the same DNA. They are relatives. They are the exact same scale starting on a different point.
Okay.
The A major scale is a different thing than the A minor scale.
That would take a little bit of like for clarity for me, I'd have to write out the tabs for each of those scales and just I'd need to play them and hear them.
Yeah, one of the things that I recommend for people is to get really good at understanding one key. Then all you're doing is moving your hand up and down the fretboard once you get comfortable and really understand a key. So then, we talked about our minor scale. The reason that I show people their minor scales or their pentatonic, and penta means 5, right?
Yep.
It's 5. So the pentatonic uses, sorry, I missed a note, uses 5 of the natural minor notes. And let me just play, I should know this. And then E, G. There we go. It plays these 5 notes are the pentatonic scale, and it's an easier, oh, sorry, I didn't actually show you guys my sheet here. So these 5 notes starting on A, C, D, E, and G are the pentatonic scale, and it's a physically easier scale to play. That's why we start with it. It's not because it's actually a little more difficult to understand the theory, but it's physically easier to play.
Okay.
And this is why your pentatonic scale and your major scale work really good because for soloing, because on the guitar, from now guitar specific, they sit beside each other on the fretboard. So your A pentatonic, for example, sits here, your 5th fret, and your C major scale move up to your 8th fret. That means because I'm really just playing the same scale, this gives me more places to play on the neck. That's really all it does. It's all the same scale.
Okay.
Kind of crazy, hey?
Yeah, there's an old saying I have, clear as mud.
Doug, we've been here before, and I think a couple of more things made sense.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to come here again, and Braden will, he just lost his feed entirely. I think he's having some internet problems. And as we answer questions for him, and as we answer questions for Justin, you look like you have a question there.
So I don't want to like get too complicated, but we've been learning the minor pentatonic, correct?
Correct.
So if we took that same starting note, because we're talking about how the minor and major have some of the same notes, is there like a major pentatonic then that we could figure out from using like what you just taught us?
That's correct. There is. So the
Okay.
major pentatonic uses the same notes as the minor pentatonic. You just start on C. So you would do C, D, E, G, A, C. So
Oh, so that one would become your pinky then, is like what you're saying. So it would be.
So from that perspective, I'm going to switch to close cam. You have your C major scale right here.
Yeah.
Your pentatonic, which is a thing. It's talked about a lot less online. And Doug, if you don't follow this, it doesn't matter. It's all good. But there is, the major pentatonic is C, D, E, G, A, and then back to C. But it's exactly the same notes as we're starting on A, C, D, right? We're doing the same. This is the E. So it's
Right.
the major and the minor pentatonic share exactly the same notes. They just have a different starting note. So we
Okay.
think they're two different scales, but they're the same thing. It's where I say it's two sides of a coin, but it's the same coin. We're are we looking at heads? We're looking at tails. It's exactly the same thing if you're looking at major or minor. You're just looking at a different perspective of exactly the same notes.
Okay, I see. So like for minor, so that would be like the starting note would be like your index. That's what we've been doing. So if you wanted to do the major, you would start it on the same note, but you would be using your pinky for it now. So it would be.
That works. That works.
So that's the same note. Okay, that's mind blowing. Whoa. Okay.
Good. Well, hey, Doug, if we blew Justin's mind, it doesn't surprise me that you're saying clear as mud.
It's coming. It's getting better every time.
It is. It is. Gentlemen, this was super fun, and I appreciate your time, and this is super fun for me. We've done almost an hour, which is insanely awesome. It's nice to be able to talk about music with guys that are interested in all this kind of super nerd stuff. So thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing both of you guys back next time. And I'm going to put up my outro really just to give myself time to turn off all the computers and all that stuff as we go out on our stream. So thank you, gentlemen. I will see you next Monday at 3:30.
Take care,
All
guys.
right. See you, man.
Bye.